What if I told you that in medieval times your gender alone could determine not just if you died, but exactly how you would suffer? They didn't just execute women. They choreographed elaborate performances of cruelty, turning death into twisted theatre. Some punishments were so specifically designed to exploit femininity as weakness that they were never used on men. And when you hear what they did, you'll realize that the word justice meant something completely different when your only crime was being born female. Imagine living in a world where stepping outside society's rules as a woman could seal your fate in the most calculated and agonizing way imaginable. Medieval executions were not just about ending a life. They were systematic campaigns of psychological warfare designed to destroy your body, strip away your dignity, and erase your memory from history itself. Today, we'll explore the most shocking execution methods reserved exclusively for women in the Middle Ages. These were punishments designed to annihilate not only a life, but a soul. What you are about to discover will shatter everything you thought you knew about historical justice and make you question how far we have really come. Stay until the end, because the final connection will change how you see both the past and the present forever. To understand why these executions were so uniquely brutal, you need to understand the medieval mindset about women. This was not random violence. It was systematic oppression built into a legal framework. Medieval law was not blind. It was strategically gendered. While men often faced swift beheadings for treason or hangings for theft, women encountered punishments specifically engineered to use their femininity as a weapon against them. The same crime could mean a completely different death, and that difference came down to one thing: gender. Here is the twisted psychology behind it. Medieval society viewed women as both morally inferior and yet somehow morally responsible for maintaining social order. They were seen as naturally corrupt, but also expected to be models of virtue. When a woman was accused of witchcraft, infanticide, adultery, or even talking too much, her punishment was not just about the crime. It had to address what they saw as the cosmic offense of a woman daring to step outside her assigned role. Every detail of these executions, including what she wore, how she was bound, and what the crowd was told, served a deeper goal than simple punishment. It was control through terror, sending a message not just to the condemned but to every woman watching. This is what happens when you forget your place. You are accused of infanticide, the killing of your own child. In medieval society, this was considered the ultimate betrayal of motherhood. Your punishment would not be a quick death. It would be a public performance. The drowning chair was a heavy wooden seat attached to a long beam and positioned over a river or lake. But they didn't just drown you quickly. You would be lowered slowly into the freezing water, feeling every inch of the cold creep into your skin. Just as your lungs began to burn and your mind started to fade, they would pull you back up. You would gasp, cough, maybe scream or beg. The crowd, and there was always a crowd, would cheer or jeer like spectators at a sport. Then down you would go again. This could happen 5, 10, or even 15 times. Each time you surfaced, your hope would flicker. Each time you went under, the terror would grow. Authorities called this method more modest than hanging or beheading, supposedly more appropriate for women. But modesty was just the mask. This was entertainment, and your suffering was the main attraction. Everyone knows about burning at the stake, but history often hides how it was altered for women to maximize suffering and humiliation. Hours before the execution, women were often publicly shaved, their hair, eyebrows, and sometimes even body hair, stripping away one of the most visible symbols of femininity. In that culture, hair was a crown, and removing it was the first step toward erasing identity. Then came the forced confession. Women were pressured to admit not only their crimes, but their inherent corruption as females. They had to say they seduced men into sin, used beauty for evil, and betrayed the role they were meant to play. At the execution site, the fire was rarely set to burn quickly. It was lit small and slow, forcing the condemned to feel every creeping inch of heat. Sometimes the executioner used an iron collar with a rope to partially strangle the woman before death, keeping her conscious just long enough to feel the flames. Imagine being locked in a narrow cage shaped roughly to your body. Not tall enough to stand, not wide enough to sit. The cage is hung from the city walls or in the center of the marketplace. You are left there for days. Rain soaks you, wind freezes you, and the sun scorches you. Hunger gnaws at you until you are too weak to lift your head. Birds land on the cage and peck at your skin while people below point and laugh. For women, the humiliation was even greater. Society expected modesty, but in the cage, your body was on display until you were nothing more than a rotting warning sign. The scold's bridle was a metal headpiece with a bit that pressed down on the tongue, making speech impossible. Sometimes there were spikes that cut the tongue if you tried to speak. For women walking to their deaths, the bridle meant silence. No final words, no plea for mercy, no goodbye to family. Just muffled sounds and the taste of blood while the crowd jeered. This was not only about stopping your voice in life. It was about denying you even the right to speak in death. The breaking wheel left nothing to chance. The condemned was tied spread-eagle to a large wooden wheel. The executioner brought down a heavy iron bar, shattering bones one by one, carefully avoiding instant death. For women, the process was often dragged out for hours. The positioning left them completely exposed, often inviting lewd comments or worse from the crowd. Death came slowly, not just from injury, but from the humiliation that came with being displayed this way. Used on women accused of witchcraft who refused to confess, pressing involved placing a board across the chest and stacking stones one by one. The weight made it harder to breathe. Ribs broke, organs shifted. The pain was relentless, and death could take hours or even days. For women, the positioning and the public display added layers of humiliation to the suffering. These weren't just abstract punishments. They happened to real women. Joan of Arc burned in 1431 in Rouen, France, stripped of her armor and dignity, dressed in sinner's clothes, and burned as a heretic. Her ashes were thrown into the Seine, so no grave could honor her. Petronilla de Meath burned in 1324 in Kilkenny, Ireland, after being accused of witchcraft. Her name appears in only a single historical line, yet behind it was a life erased. Margaret Clitheroe, pressed to death in 1586 in York, England, for refusing to plead. Her slow, crushing death was meant to send a message. These weren't just punishments, they were messages. Every detail, from the iron in the mouth to the fire at the feet, said the same thing. Your body belongs to us, your voice belongs to us, and even your memory belongs to us. The choice of water, fire, iron, and stone was not random. It was symbolic. The parades, confessions, and public prayers were all part of the performance. This was not about justice, it was about control. Medieval executions of women were theatrical acts of erasure. Death was the final act, but the real goal was to strip away identity and leave nothing but fear. The women who endured these deaths lost their lives, their voices, and their place in history. If you want to uncover more of history's fascinating and often chilling stories, be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a chance to explore the past with us.